Hey everybody. Okay, so today I wanted to unpack a topic. This is a very spontaneous topic for me. It just came to me this morning in my meditation, how I'm viewing my suffering and how others are viewing their suffering. And there's a lot of suffering happening right now on this planet. And I wanted to unpack it a little bit and kind of just shine some light on what suffering is and how we can go about reframing the way we view our suffering so we can suffer less. So this video is called Why Your Suffering is Essential to Your Spiritual Evolution. And I'm finding more and more I'm becoming less a life coach and more a spiritual teacher, but I'm not quite ready to take that jump yet. I still love working with the individual dynamic and whatnot. So I'm really doing a lot of work in both areas right now and just kind of playing with them. So it's really fun. So this video is going to be for you if you're finding that you are struggling right now, you're suffering, you're identified with mind a lot of the time. Your mind is playing tricks on you, your mind is creating drama for you, you're having a few great days followed by a week of shit, like just these sorts of themes, okay? So this is going to be for you. So what is suffering? Okay, so suffering for me, I'm going to explain my experience with suffering. Suffering for me has been an experience of being in my mind and playing out tapes and going over and over and over the same frickin' things over and over again and feeling like I'm finally going to arrive to some sort of end result or whatever. And what I've noticed for me, the suffering is all about uncertainty. So I'm trying to create my experiences instead of letting my experiences create me, and I'm trying to control people, things, people, places, all this stuff, and when I don't have control, which guess what, you never have control, you're unhappy and you create suffering for yourself. So these are flavors I've been grappling with for a greater part of almost a decade, and if not longer. So I'm really learning in the last year or so here how to really settle in to allowing my suffering to take place and allowing myself to learn from it and grow through it. And it wasn't up until I started doing shadow work that this idea of welcome everything came about. And it's been a game changer for me. So I wanted to kind of talk a bit about this. So we all have the experience of the discrepancy between mind and heart, okay? And what happens, I find, with people is the mind creates a very contracting experience for us, right? It becomes limiting, right? When we're in our heads a lot, we shrink down and we become contracted. And when we're in our hearts, we become expansive, right? And we're constantly moving like this, okay? And what suffering is for me, it's when we judge the contracting and we celebrate the expanding. And when we're not expanding, we're contracting, and when we're contracting, we're not happy, so we cause suffering for ourselves. So it's the mere judgment of our experience as not being as we desire it to be that is creating the suffering for us. It's not actually the contracting itself, it's the judgment of the contraction. So what we want to do is we want to start to learn how to be at peace with this idea that we are always going to be contracting and expanding. If you look at how we have these experiences in life, we experience life through our central nervous system, right? Our central nervous system, when we're contracting, it's more on an anxious spectrum. It's more on a controlling spectrum. We don't like uncertainty, all of these flavors. And then when we're expanding, we're more in our heart-based energy, right? Which is telling us possibilities are limitless, that certainty doesn't necessarily need to be there in order for us to find happiness or peace of mind, right? So when we're moving between these two worlds, we got to understand that the central nervous system is going to play a big part in this. So I want to bring this teaching into that aspect of things, because the central nervous system is really going to be an indicator of how we are doing, right? When we're safe and we feel a sense of safety, our central nervous system is calm. When we're anxious, our central nervous system is exacerbated. So what I've noticed about my own spiritual journey is that it's always going to be contracting and then expanding, contracting and expanding. And what this is it's basically we're taking one step back, as in contracting, to take two steps forward. If we start to realize that we need this back step of contraction in order to move two steps forward, we start to view our contractions as necessary, not punishment to us, right? Not that the universe is somehow punishing us because, we didn't make the right choice, or we're not, in high enough vibration, or whatever the story is that we're telling ourselves of why we keep contracting. We're contracting because we need to. We need to contract in order for our spiritual evolution to continue moving forward, right? It's the law of polarity, of opposites, right? We need to have the contracting in order to have the expanding. So what's happening is our central nervous system is downloading constantly the things that need to evolve and shift and change in us, right? And when I talk about contracting, I talk about activation, right? We become activated in our environment based off of certain things, triggers, people, things that were said to us, our past, any of this sort of stuff. And it manifests as rumination, it manifests as perseveration of thought, mental chatter, anxiety, depression, however it's showing up for you. It's your central nervous system contracting, almost in this state of incubation, right? And then when we've had enough, stuff stirred up in us, our heart starts to kind of insert itself and it expands, and we get this expansive state. And that's why we're having this experience of oscillation between feeling good, feeling bad, feeling good, feeling bad. But what I'm trying to share with you guys is we don't need to judge the experience and make it good or bad. We need to simply be present in each moment and allow the contraction to happen, and then also allow the expansion to happen. But knowing that as we move between these two, it's all serving one greater good, one greater goal, which is your spiritual evolution, right? So your suffering is just it's like the first domino spilling over, and it's setting off in motion all of this other stuff that's taking place. But a lot of it's happening behind the scenes in your central nervous system, but also in your psyche and your subconscious, where things are moving and shifting in order for you to settle into the inner peace that is always awaiting us, right? And it's awaiting us in any given moment, but it's also awaiting us in future moments. We're just not sure as to how or when it's going to arrive, because we're always trying to just stay in the present moment, right? So part of what the contraction is doing in when our nervous system contracts is it's showing us what conditioning we have inside of us that needs to be integrated, right? And then we get spun out, we start to get all anxious, and we get whatever our flavor is, and then it gives us an opportunity to soften. Right? And it's from activation into softening that all of our healing occurs, right? It's the ability to be able to surrender to this process happening. We don't do anything. We don't go from contraction into softening. That's the natural way. That's what we need to surrender to, right? So it's not about you making choices about how I can do this, how I can do this, how I can do this. The choice we make as human beings is to surrender and allow the contraction to expand and soften. And when I say soften, I mean soften out of ego, right? When we're in mind and we're in contraction, we're in ego. We're defending ourselves against the world. And when we soften, we are opening up our hearts to the world, right? So it's a completely different experience of the world, but they're both extremely valid, and they both deserve to have a seat at the table. And we use the mantra of welcome everything in this work because we know we need everything in order for us to evolve and become more connected to our authenticity, right? That's what this journey is all about. So one of the things that perpetuates our suffering is this expectation of I need to feel good all the time. Why are we measuring our current moment up against this expectation of I need to feel good all the time? Because if you're not feeling good right now, it's the judgment of the feeling that you're currently having that's making it a non-feel-good moment, right? And when we learn to just be with each moment, be with each experience as it arrives, we notice that we're no longer carrying this expectation and measuring it up against every moment, saying, could I feel better? in this moment. It's about, I'm feeling this way in this moment, and I'm going to allow that to be there. And then what we notice happens is, when we don't lead with this expectation, is a feel-good moment just comes to us when we're no longer measuring our current moment up against a feel-good moment. So just understand that life is always going to be ebbing and flowing, and it's always going to be up and down in the sense of our moods, and contracting and expanding. We're always going to be moving between these two worlds. So it's like, why are we judging each moment when we could just learn to just embrace the moment as it's choosing, or as you're choosing to allow it to show up through surrendering, right? So this is important stuff if you're wanting to really dissipate the suffering that's going on. And we're not dissipating suffering by pushing it away or rejecting it. We're actually allowing it. We're welcoming the suffering. And then when we welcome the suffering, we find we suffer much less. So anyway, hopefully that resonates with you. I'd love to hear a little bit about some of the stuff that's happening in your world when it comes to contracting and expanding. What's making you contract right now in life? What are your triggers? What's activating you? And then how are you softening that? What does it feel like when you move into this expansive state and you move down into your heart, right? Life gets a lot more interesting and fun and fulfilling and joy-filled when we take the journey from our head down into our heart, and when we allow that to happen through surrendering and not try and force it and judge the moment as it is. So, okay, have a beautiful day, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.